Welcome. This is Rifts Rants, episode 1. I'm known on YouTube as Off to Battle, and this is just something that I'm doing mostly for fun, because this is an old hobby, but one that I couldn't touch for many, many years, just because of not having enough people available to be running games, because I was the one who got stuck with having to try and run things. So anything related to balance, to practically making things work, is something that I have a great interest in. And Rifts was a special kind of challenge, but really it's for having a pithy title. I don't want a long, meandering title, so I'm really talking about things in the whole Palladium system. Both things I've personally dealt with and things that are more like I've heard about, I've researched, I've talked to other people about their experiences, and so on and so forth. So it's basically an old gamer trying to get back in touch with roots, because these are things that I pondered as a teenager, and even years later, pondering is interesting because if there's one thing that we can agree on, it's that old Palladium books tended not to be edited to the extent that we would hope. And when I say old, I mean basically all of them. But having said that, editing is hard, and publishing is hard. So I speak from a position of love, not a position of hatred. And I want to take that attitude going forward. Now, today's subject is something that I've decided is dangerous enough in the system that if left untended, if allowed, if taken seriously as well as literally, it will not only destroy entire games, it will destroy entire settings, entire worlds, because it's just not workable how people might interpret it if they just read it and say, okay, that's what it says, and just go based on that. And I'll explain. Because what I'm talking about is a game mechanic called Simultaneous Strike. And I'll try to say this like a parable to begin with. And so, in the beginning, there was initiative, and it was good. For the creator, who we shall call Kevin, gave us a way so that people knew who the hell was supposed to act first, which is valuable. And so he said, let there be strike. And it was good, because this is combat and not tiddlywinks, therefore we need a method for striking the opponent. That's good. And so the creator said, let there be parry, and it was good, because parry is a way to prevent ourselves from being smacked from people who are attempting to strike us, and therefore is very valuable. And so the creator said, let there be dodge, and it too was good, because if someone attempts to strike you with a sword, and you attempt to parry with your fist, you are probably going to be down a fist, as well as most of your arm. Therefore, dodging is a good thing. And so the creator said, let there be entangle, which is interesting because how many people actually remember entangle exists? But it was also good because it was an active defense, a way to stop somebody from swinging that sword for an extended period of time, and giving us an opportunity to defend ourselves and do something more than just run away from the sword. Of course, provided that it didn't just slash us and leave our... It's a bad thing if you get hit. And then the creator had an idea. He said, okay, how about we do this? We'll have simultaneous strike. When somebody is going to strike you, you can hit them back. And because you're hitting at the same time, neither side gets to use any of the defenses. Not parry, not dodge, not entangle. And they will happen at basically the same time. And then he messed everything up. And like I said, I say this from a position of love, not hatred. You know how in the samurai movies that people, at the end of a battle, at the end of a fight, at the end of a duel, that you'll have two people opposing each other with swords, staring at each other with their swords raised, possibly in different ways with different stances, and then they have the one final pass slashing at each other. If you take the Palladium system seriously, basically 99 times out of 100, both of those guys, let's say if they have 4 or 5 hit points left, both of them will fall dead a few seconds after passing each other. And that's because it is virtually impossible for a good, trained fighter to miss. We don't even have, in many games in the systems, in the Palladium system, natural one misses. So with modifiers to hit, you just have to roll a 20-sided die and roll above 4. So if you have one with a modifier of +4, you get a 5. Anybody who has a +4 will hit every single time, all things being equal, if there is no possibility of the defense. So what I'm saying is that you would never have a situation where two people, one of pretty good skill, the other one a protagonist level, really great skill. You would never have the protagonist walking away from you, or at least not walking away with, gashing chest wound or whatever. Uh, but the point I'm making is that it's not just that it locks you in. It's not just that you guarantee that both sides are taking damage. It's that if you make it so that there's absolutely no way to avoid that. Let me go back to initiative. The person who loses initiative is rewarded for having lost because you have simultaneous strike. Because he can choose, and I'm using the example of swordsmen using swords of basically equal length. And we'll get back to that later. But what I'm saying is that you're rewarding the person who loses the initiative battle, giving them a way not just to strike back at the same time, which normally would not be the case, but by giving them a way to completely obliterate the defenses of the person who is attacking. And that's where it gets very spicy as we proceed forward. And I'll use a second phase of my parable to illustrate how this goes. And just imagine a wizened veteran game master who's a grandfather, and the grandson is this young enough, bright-eyed kid. So the little kid is like, oh, so that's how it works. Okay. Then I'm going to play a longbowman. I've got this big, long bow that's like Robin Hood. It's made of yew. It's really good stuff. Okay, but somebody's going to attack me, and they're going to throw this little knife at me. So when they throw this little knife at me, I'm going to shoot back with my bow, and it's going to be a simultaneous strike. So I'm going to hit them, and they're going to hit me with that little dagger, and then the GM says, wait. Being hit with a dagger is bad. You are going to bleed out and die if you get hit with daggers. And it's like, Grandpa, this isn't first edition like in your day. Everybody's playing second edition now. We've got SDC. I can take it. It's like toughness. And the GM is like, okay, I suppose, yeah. You can take a hit or two with little thrown daggers. You can do that. Okay, so I'm getting simultaneous strike and I'm doing my damage and I'm doing much more than him, right? Yes, you are. Okay, so that's fair. Then the kid goes, okay, then next, I'm gonna play a guy with a really big suit of armor and an armor that glows. Well, okay, it's really just glittering, but it's really shiny. You can see yourself in it. And then if somebody's fighting me with a laser, a little laser pistol, and fires that it does like 4 damage. Well, it's supposed to do 4 damage, but it does nothing because it just bounces off like a reflection. Actually, it does half damage, so it's only 2 damage, but, almost none. And then I've got this really big gun on my shoulder, and it makes this huge boom every time you fire, and you're using, like, junk to shoot at people, like bolts, and it just rips them apart. But I'm gonna shoot back, and I'm gonna do a simultaneous strike. And then blood begins to drain out of the face of the veteran game master as he realizes what's going on. And then I'm gonna do like 110 damage to him. I'm gonna blow him away. I'm gonna rip him apart. And then, I'm gonna do that to the next guy. And the next guy after that. And I'm gonna simultaneous strike everybody. I'm gonna be the baddest guy in the whole world. And the veteran is like, wait, we can't do that. That's getting too far. And then he has a book thrust in his face as the little grandson goes, it's in the rules. You wouldn't go against the rules, would you? Would you? And that's where I come in and rescue the heavily sweating veteran wizened game master because, yeah, I've talked to people who've tried this. After one 15-second melee round of action, they were like, nope. They reached their no point. NOPE. Never again. Never again, they said. And that's basically it for Simultaneous Strike. And you Rifts players, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, yes, this is how something like this can destroy entire settings. But it's also that even in a pure fantasy setting, it would completely destroy things because the person with any kind of toughness advantage, any kind of armor advantage, there's no need for them to play the game anymore. They just say, I'm going to do a simultaneous strike. Doesn't matter if they lost initiative. It doesn't matter if they would have lost a party because they don't have to roll. Because there is no party. They'll just take the hit. And the other side doesn't have a party roll, and they can't defend. So unless you're rolling a natural one and you only have a minor modifier of +3 or less on your strike, you will hit. You will do damage. And therefore, you're rewarded for losing. You basically create a situation where nobody wants to go first, and only a fool strikes first, which is, in some martial arts situations, you can understand that in a way, but in an actual combat with actual weapons, it breaks down pretty badly. Now, my main objective here is to illustrate the problem, because anybody can do a fix, including the only way to win is to not play. You have that option, as in never allowing simultaneous strike. But I'm just going to illustrate another sort of problem, because let's go back to the samurai stuff. And there are two things here. And number one, and I say this as a translator who has translated Japanese light novels and manga and has, I know enough about Japanese culture to be dangerous. That's how I will put it. This is from drama. It's from theater. It's from the stage. It's dramatic because it's from literal drama in like a Shakespearean sense. So when the two people on stage are facing each other at the final part of a fight and the audience goes, and they're like, we're all gasping, holding our breaths and watching for the dramatic finale. This is exactly what anime is going for when they do that. It's homage to no plays. It's homage to all sorts of theater and drama, and it's because it's effective at its job. And they don't always do that. You can have, in certain cases, it being more like Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones in that first movie where this guy swings around a curved sword and he just takes out a pistol and shoots the guy. Well, that's an example of trying to parry a bullet. It doesn't work well in real life. It doesn't work well in Indiana Jones movies either. So the point is, well, you're supposed to dodge bullets or try to dodge before you're being shot at. That's the idea. So the point is that dramatic stuff has its place, but if you have the dramatic ending in the first part of the combat scene, first of all, your scene ends pretty quickly. Second of all, it just doesn't work well as cinematic drama. And third of all, you never would have anybody walking away from it. So in that case, I would say, I understand the part about not being able to dodge or entangle because you're having two people who have decided to attack each other. But the thing is that parrying is more than just blocking or even deflecting with a physical weapon like that. Parrying can be moving a few inches to the side so that a sword passes by your face and takes off a few strands of hair, but it doesn't touch your forehead, it doesn't touch your scalp. Your flesh is not harmed. That counts as a parry in an abstract system like Palladium uses. And that's to say that not everything has to be a physical block. It doesn't have to physically impact a shield or even a sword or a cross guard, things like that. Parrying is a lot of stuff, but it's different than your jumping over a table in order to flee from the grenade that has been thrown into your midst. That's a dodge. So, and like rolling behind a boulder when you're being shot at, that's a dodge. You're not mixing that with attacking back. Not if you aren't superhuman, some kind of chemically altered super soldier, stuff like that. So barring those exceptional cases, you can dodge in a normal fight, but if you're having two people charge at each other with swords, it's obviously not going to work. But I would say that parrying is okay, partly because it gives the exceptional swordsman a chance to survive, but you're also definitely guaranteeing that you are making the swings at each other. and also because, like I said, the dramatic effect. Otherwise, you really would have, if you're both down to your last few hit points, you'll have both sides flop and die 99% of the time. Now, in real life, would they? Well, it's not real life, it's drama. So you might not have that kind of vast skill gap between the very good and the really, really, really good as you do in an anime, as you would in a video game, as you would in a role playing game, where you have heroes and not heroes, and things like that. So my point is that at least it's a chance. There's nothing guaranteed, but I mean, at least you get a shot. That's how I'd resolve two weapons of equal length coming at each other in melee combat. Now, what if you take from the same kind of era a katana and somebody having a longish blade stuck on the end of a moderately long pole? And that's naginata. And they were used by the Sohei warrior monks. And the express reason for using that is so that you don't get simultaneously striked by the person wielding a katana. Because you want a length advantage. You want to be able to attack first, or at least defend, before the other person gets to the range that they can cut you. That's the whole point. So what do you do then? Well, to me, and this is not confined to this situation, but I'd say if you're charging in there, length is its own initiative. And that's what I'd say. I'd say that if you're the person with the longer reach, you get an opportunity to act. There are ways to deal with that, but charging in like a madman is generally not it. Because what happens if the guy has that blade pointed at your chest and you raise your katana high with both hands and you go, ah, and the guy just stabs you? What happens then? Well, you're probably dead. That's what happens. But yeah. My point is that there are ways to deal with that. They teach them to people who are actual swordsmen or who are, reproduction swordsmen, basically, actors for films. I mean, the rules in Palladium do have entangle, but what about essentially striking the weapon to get it out of the way? And in game terms, it would be to make that person lose an attack. And then you actually have something you can use to, let me put it this way. If you don't have your next attack, can you simultaneously strike? Or can you get the initiative to strike when somebody comes into your range? And if you say no, then it means if you attack the weapon, not to destroy it, because that's very difficult. But if you get it out of the way and give yourself an opening that you can take advantage of, and then you charge in, swing the sword, go after the person's neck, that is completely legitimate. And you're still dealing with the abstract, you're still dealing with some kind of opposed roll with modifiers, you're still dealing with luck to a certain extent, but also skill, also natural ability, also talent, also experience. All of those things factor in. So even though that it's work to get a clean strike in on somebody with a longer weapon, it is possible to do. And that's another way that I deal with melee combat instead of just blindly doing the simultaneous strike. And I think that it's fair if you do it in a way like that. But the fix is not important. The fix, this is mine. This is what I've thought of, and I'm thinking about it out loud to you here. But I'm just saying that it's not the fix that's important. It's more to say that this is a big problem if you leave it unattended. And I've only talked about melee combat in this segment because I illustrated with the little kid parable about the problem with doing it with ranged. Because, very simply, people will say, fairly, there's nothing written in the rule that prevents it from being done at range. And therefore it can create even larger problems than it did before. But basically, it's like this. Why would you have both attacks going off at essentially the same time if one side actually won the initiative roll? I mean, it's another thing if both of you rolled modified 14s. Then we've got an interesting situation. But I'm just saying, short of that situation, if somebody rolled a 15 and the other person rolled a 4, why should the person who rolled a 4 be shooting at the same time as the person who rolled a 15? Why isn't it with the kind of velocities that even little 22 pistol, their muzzle velocity, the speed at which they will go from 0 to 50 feet if you're 50 feet away? It's fast. It's practically instantaneous as far as the human mind and the human reaction speed is concerned. So I'd say that if you're actually capable of soaking that damage, taking that bullet, and getting a shot off after it, which is entirely realistic. People don't necessarily die immediately when they're shot. I mean, that's a problem that law enforcement face all the time. It There are times when people are killed instantly by bullets in a law enforcement shootout situation, and there are a lot of times that they're not. So I'm just saying that the damage would go first, and the only time you would deal with a simultaneous attack would be when you have two people who roll the exact same initiative. And then you have a problem. A problem for the people involved, that is. And how I do that is that if both sides decide in that moment that they're going to shoot, then neither can dodge because they are in the act of shooting. You need at least the extra milliseconds in order to shoot and then try to get out of the way. Even if you're shuffling with happy feet, uh, you still need some kind of separation. And the thing is that if one of the sides, I mean, two people turning around suddenly and raising pistols at each other, and suddenly it occurs to both of them, oh wow, if I shoot, I can't dodge the other guy's shot. I would allow them to forego their own attacks and to attempt to dodge. Of course, then, if both do it and neither shoots, that can happen, but it looks kind of silly if you do it too often. But the point is that it would be possible to do that. And then if people think that it's much more important that the shot has to be taken, this is a person, or like the hero is facing somebody who has a bomb that can destroy the entire building with its red button to push to detonate 5 feet away. And he's thinking to himself, I have to take this hit. If it strikes me, it strikes me. I have to take the hit. I have to end this. Then you go with that. And it's great from a dramatic perspective. But the point is, you actually give people a choice to make that split-second commitment. And you're not locking them in because, well, like I said, the problem with the previous case is that the loser controls the tempo of the battle. And that's a problem when you have something called initiative, with the purpose of who acts first. So that's what I mean, that you have a problem, but there are solutions. And if you just think about it a little and work with the situation, you can create solutions that are satisfying, and they are definitely modifying things, or you can just ban it completely. But my point was to say, you don't have magic, you don't have psionics, nothing, no superpowers interfering with this. A game mechanic alone, using ordinary weapons, or exceptional ones. Ordinary armor, ordinary characters, however they're equipped. And this would completely break a game, if allowed to, which I'm sure people wouldn't. Not for, Beyond the People, like I said, somebody tried it for 15 seconds of in-game time, 6 attacks with a glitter boy boom gun, and they were like, nope, we're not doing this again. So that's why I saved it for something I'm calling Rifts Rants, because, it's a rant. It's my opinion. It's not an instruction manual for life. I'm not that good. I'm just a guy who used to ponder this stuff and try to make it work in the few games that I actually had. And it's just because of where I live and the population not being high enough, and I just couldn't run things like I wanted to. And years have passed. But still, there are people who are into the hobby. There's people watching stuff about these game systems on YouTube, so this is the tiny bit of wisdom and opinion that I can impart, and I hope it's made for an entertaining podcast. And if that is the case, tune in next time, because I'll certainly be making some more. And like I said, it's not necessarily that I'm offering one true way to do things. I mean, even if I did, people would be absolutely within their rights to disagree with me to the ends of the earth and back, or other worlds as well. But, well, whatever. We'll try to make a more harmonious megaverse for having conflict. Having lots of conflict that are resolved with dialogue and die rolls. And we'll see how it goes. Take care and have fun, which is my usual motto from my regular gaming stuff. But no. Have fun not having your games destroyed by simultaneous strike. And I will add one minor thing. There is the thing with paired weapons, but I think that the paired weapons is the least broken part of the rule, and therefore people don't need to hear anything from me about it. So I'm cool with that. You can just make it work fairly logically, and that's great. But I'll get back to, automatic versus unlimited for something for another session. Take care.